Hey gang, welcome back to Inverted Pursuits Laboratory. This week we're taking a look at the Sentinel rocket. Inside the Sentinel kit that you would have purchased from invertedpursuitslab.com that you will have linked in the description below, you will find the contents for your rocket. There is a cardboard liner for your motor, body tube sections, the nose cone, fin can, remaining body tube sections, as well as a motor retainer. So, inside these body tube sections, there is one section that has a completely smooth bore on top with threads on the bottom. This is the top of your rocket. There are two identical sections that have internal threads on one side and external threads on the other. You only need one of these for the build of your rocket. The other is a spare in case you were to break something or if you wanted to modify the length of your rocket. The third section you'll find is our center section. It has threads on both sides as well, but when you look down the center of the bore, there is an obstruction, and that is a shock cord mount location. Then you have your nose cone. The nose cone is extremely light, has two pieces that thread together and gives you a small location to put a tracker inside of. It fits a Marco Polo tracker in it very well. Then you have your fin can / motor mount. The fin can has internal threads on both sides. On the bottom side is where your motor retention, a small knurled piece, threads into. This is also where the motor liner slides into the back of your rocket. This fit may not be perfect the first time, and you may have to go in and clean up some of the internal edges to allow your motor liner to fully slide inside. From there, you can screw on the motor retention just to see how it looks. You'll need to take it off again before you can fly the rocket. But to start assembly, we start from the top. So we take the top section that has the spot where the nose cone sits into. It's also the only one that doesn't have internal threads. Then you find the section with your shock cord mount in it and screw them together. You can use CA glue to glue these sections together, but this entire rocket is intended to fly without the use of glue. Then you screw on your section with internal and external threads, but no shock cord mount in it. Now, your shock cord does not come in this kit, but it is recommended that you buy a Kevlar shock cord, at least 1/8 inch. You can tie that on before you put this rocket together at all, so take everything apart, slide shock cord down in and around, tie a knot in it, just make sure it stays on there. Do a lot of pulls on it and make sure that the shock cord doesn't just slide out when you tie it on there. Then you'll just thread everything back through, and finally the fin can mounts to the bottom of the rocket. From there, just the nose cone goes on top. Its shock cord mount is a simple little divot in there where you tie the shock cord around as well. And then a parachute will tie onto your shock cord and is slid inside the rocket body before the nose cone goes on the end. But that is the Sentinel rocket in its entirety. There is also a rail guide location on the side of the rocket here. You will have to put a secondary rail guide hole in the rocket yourself. That location will be based off of your CG once you have checked in OpenRocket what motor you are flying on, and if you're flying any payload in the nose cone, such as a Marco Polo tracker or some other form of tracker. From there, you will find your location, drill the hole. Easiest way to drill the hole is to put a screw in the rear rail guide mount, tie it around it, and then tape the other end of the string perfectly aligned with the center of your nose cone so that the string makes a perfect, basically, center line down your rocket. Then you figure out the distance it tells you to measure from either the base or the tip of your rocket. You can figure out that math pretty simply. And you measure to that location, mark, and drill your hole. You can, if you want, swap the location of these two body tubes. So the one with the shock cord mount can go further down, and the one like They can just go at the bottom, or this one can go at the top. That is intentionally done so that you can fly longer motors. So some motors will not fit in the space that is just the fin can, but most will. Here is a longer motor, and it, for the most part, fits inside the length of the motor. I don't remember what this motor was when I flew it. I believe it was an H-grain, but it sent this rocket ridiculously high when I tested it. I've also done tests on smaller motors, such as this EconoJet F25 or F52 classic propellant. This sends them to a respectable height where you can still see it and test your tracker. It's a good test motor start point, but be sure you verify all of this in OpenRocket before you fly. If you're flying one of the larger motors, you may want to go ahead and add in the extra body tube section to increase the length of the rocket, and you can add a little bit less CG to your nose cone to balance out the rocket. But again, these two locations can be swapped based on your preference. I tend to fly it further up and leave more space here. That way there is less chance of the ejection charge having any effect on my shock cord. Even though the shock cord I recommend you use is Kevlar, if you were to use another type of shock cord that may melt, it's important to have it further away from the motor when ejection charge goes off so you don't inadvertently melt that shock cord. And then you have a rocket coming down not under parachute. That OpenRocket file is available on my website. There's a link to that OpenRocket file in the description below. Please go download it, verify the entire rocket. If you're adding in this body tube length, the rocket is set up in OpenRocket with this length, but you add 8 inches to the rocket for one of these. You can also verify that by measuring it and seeing how much it increases the length of your rocket. You can also do it by adding it in there and measuring the rocket as what it is now and adjusting your numbers. But these are 8-inch additional length sections. Each section of the rocket is exactly 8 inches. So from the top of the body tube to the bottom of the body tube, fin can part, is 32 inches on this rocket right now. As for mounting a motor in the back of the rocket, you simply take the motor retention off the back, take your motor and slide it into the rocket. It will seat in there with a little bit of snugness, especially on these longer ones. On the shorter ones, they tend to be a little loose just sitting in there because there's nothing there interfacing with further up. From there, you screw on the motor mount, and these can be a little tight because these are just a little snug. If things are snug, as this one currently is, you want to take it back out and verify, take a piece of sandpaper to the inside. I'd use a pair of pliers to get this motor out so it's got a gnarled up edge, which is why it's not working very well for me. But if I use the smaller rocket, we can see that it sits in there very nicely. And then we'll go ahead and show that that slides in the back, and you screw it in, and then the motor is mounted. There is no wiggle in the motor. Whenever it is mounted, you can shake the rocket as much as you want. That motor is not going anywhere. If you have any questions about the Sentinel rocket, please consider leaving a comment down below, or you can reach out to me via the contact page on my web store. I'm always willing to answer any questions you may have and help you with any issues you may be running into during the build of your Sentinel rocket. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, as that really helps me out a ton as I'm continuing to build this channel. I'll see you all in the next video.